For decades, owning a Rolex watch meant walking into a world of exclusivity, long waiting lists, eye-watering prices, and the prestige of being among the few who got in. But what if I told you the empty display cases you saw in stores weren't by accident? In 2025, the CEO of Rolex reportedly admitted something shocking, making it seem like those vacant slots are part of a calculated plan. Because even though Rolex could ship thousands of watches, they're holding back, on purpose. Less than 5% of their total inventory is making it to store windows. That means if one store has 50 watches on display, the other 950 pieces are being kept in back rooms or warehouses. Most customers never see the true volume, and most parts of the world never feel the real supply. The numbers don't lie. Waiting lists stretch for months, sometimes over a year, and buyers end up paying 2 to 3 times the official retail price just to get their hands on a new Submariner or Daytona. It isn't about shortage, it's about control. But the question is, control of what and why? Now that the secret is out, you'll never look at an empty showcase the same way again. The king of luxury watches. In the early years, a man named Hans Wilsdorf and his brother-in-law Alfred Davis started a watchmaking company in London in 1905. They called it Wilsdorf and Davis. Back then, most people used pocket watches. Wristwatches were rare and not very trusted. Wilsdorf believed wristwatches could be the future. He worked with Swiss movement makers to get precise, small watch mechanisms for his wristwatches. In 1908, he registered the name Rolex. He picked that name because he wanted something short and easy to say in any language, and that would look good on the watch face. After first successes, in 1919, the company moved from London to Geneva, Switzerland. This gave Rolex access to the heart of watchmaking excellence and better conditions for making quality watches. Over the years, Rolex built a reputation on precision and quality. In 1910, a Rolex wristwatch got the first ever Swiss chronometric precision certificate for a wristwatch. Then, a big step came in 1926 when Rolex introduced the Oyster, a waterproof and dustproof wristwatch. The design sealed the watch case and protected the movement from water and dust. Rolex promoted this by showing the watch underwater, a bold marketing move for that time. Over decades, Rolex kept building its image by combining reliability, precision, and luxury. In 1956, the brand introduced the Oyster Perpetual Day Date, the first wristwatch to show the day spelled out, and the date, making it a status symbol among influential people. Explorers, pilots, divers, and travelers began trusting Rolex for robust performance under difficult conditions. By the early 21st century, Rolex had become a global icon for luxury and quality. The company integrated more of its supply chain. In 2004, it acquired a movement maker, giving it more control over parts and assembly. As of 2023, Rolex reportedly produced about 1.24 million watches per year. For many years, the brand's success had seemed unshakable. People wore Rolex as a symbol of status, achievement, and reliability. However, in recent years, the tide started turning. The broader market for luxury Swiss watches began to struggle. By 2024, resale values of many used Rolex models had dropped to their lowest levels in years. Watches that once sold for high premiums on the secondhand market became cheaper. The global demand for luxury watches fell as economic conditions got tougher and consumers became more cautious about big purchases. This drop in demand affected not just the resale market. According to a report from 2025, the share of Rolex transactions on a major resale platform fell significantly, from 44% in 2022 to 34% by end of 2024. That suggests fewer people were buying or trading Rolex watches compared with earlier years. Because of the price drop and weak demand, many retailers and even long-standing stores that sold Rolex began to struggle. In some regions, stores stopped offering Rolex the way they used to or reduced their stock. The result, some boutiques and authorized dealers reported emptier display windows or less frequent restocks of popular models. Also, the appeal of Rolex as an investment or status symbol weakened. When people saw that resale values dropped, they became less eager to pay premium prices. Others turned to alternative luxury watch brands or different items altogether. In addition, the watch industry slump hit as global economic uncertainty increased. Buyers who once splurged on luxury items became more cautious. Many middle-class buyers, the group that helped expand demand beyond the ultra-rich, pulled back from expensive purchases. At the same time, speculation and resale hype around Rolex cooled off. During the pandemic, and in the years right after, many people bought Rolex watches, hoping their value would rise. But when the resale market collapsed, those hopes faded. The brand's exclusivity started losing some of its power. Because of these trends, some Rolex stores experienced times when their display cases looked half empty or lacked the hottest models. The experience of walking into a Rolex store and seeing available watches became rarer than before, especially compared to the boom years. Rolex rose because it combined innovation, precision craftsmanship, bold marketing, and strong brand identity. That success lasted for decades and made Rolex a global symbol of luxury and reliability. But today, it no longer feels unassailable. Its watches no longer always promise big resale gains. Some stores are emptier, and many consumers now weigh more carefully whether the price and prestige of a Rolex still fit their needs. Why stores often appear empty? Strategy or setback? People often walked into a store looking for a Rolex watch. They hoped to see several models shining under the shop lights. Instead, many found empty display cases. Many got told there were long wait lists. Over time, that pattern made people wonder, maybe Rolex was holding back supply on purpose. Maybe the brand was laying low on production to build a sense of mystery and make each watch feel more rare and more valuable. That suspicion grew fast among watch lovers around the world. Some argued that an artificial shortage helped make Rolex watches more exclusive, like hidden treasures that only a few get to hold. They thought the emptiness at official shops was part of a plan, to stir up demand, to push waiting lists, and to make some buyers chase hard to catch models. Because of that, once a Rolex appeared on the resale market, or the so-called gray market, its price could jump far above retail. To many, this looked less like chance and more like a carefully built hype. Collectors and observers often pointed to examples of certain steel sports models, like the Submariner. They saw them go from being fairly available to nearly impossible to find in boutiques. That shift fed the narrative that scarcity was engineered for marketing gains. People believed some Rolex boutiques purposely displayed emptiness so buyers would feel they joined a rare club when they finally landed a watch. But the story changed when Rolex itself broke the silence. In a rare public comment, the company said plainly that the scarcity of our products is not a strategy on their part. Rolex acknowledged that many customers saw empty shelves and long delays, but denied that this was orchestrated to create artificial demand. Instead, Rolex said the problem was simpler and more honest. They explained that their current production could not keep up with the massive demand worldwide, at least not without reducing the quality of our watches, something they refused to do. In other words, ramping up production fast would risk lowering the level of care, quality, and finishing that define a Rolex. Rolex stated that quality is more important than volume. They said that every timepiece has to meet high standards for reliability, performance, and aesthetics. That kind of excellence needs time. Time to assemble, to polish, to test. Rushing the process could compromise durability or result in mistakes. So the company said, they will always take the necessary time, even if that means fewer watches reach stores. Another key point in Rolex's explanation is that every Rolex watch is developed and produced in-house at one of their 4 Swiss sites. They are assembled by hand, with extreme care. This kind of craftwork, metal casting, machining, finishing, assembling, testing cannot be sped up at will. Because humans, not machines, do most of the work, there is a natural limit on how many watches can be made over a given period. Rolex also said that once watches leave the manufacturer and go out to their official retailers, the company does not control who buys them. The retailers not Rolex, are responsible for selling watches to customers, managing wait lists, and allocating available units. That means that if a shop's shelves are bare, it doesn't always reflect a worldwide shortage. It may reflect how that particular retailer allocated their stock. So, according to Rolex, the emptiness people see in boutiques is not the result of a marketing gimmick. It is a byproduct of real manufacturing constraints, global demand, and careful brand standards. The shortage, from their view, is unintentional. It is not crafted to drive hype, but simply a consequence of how they build watches and how they distribute them. For many who heard this, the statement challenged the prevailing belief that Rolex was playing games. It invited people to reconsider that maybe empty display cases did not mean a secret plan, but a brand struggling to keep up with demand while refusing to lower its standards. Maybe what felt like hype was just the result of old-fashioned craftsmanship, slow work, and strict quality control. Yet even with that statement, doubts remained. Some critics still asked, if demand is high and quality remains fixed, why not hire more watchmakers to ramp up production? Couldn't Rolex expand its capacity, get more people, open more factories, build more watches, without sacrificing quality? But Rolex and watch industry insiders have pushed back on that idea. They say fine watchmaking is not like producing gadgets. Skilled watchmakers take years to train. The precision required, down to tiny screws, delicate movements, tight tolerances, means you cannot just speed up production without risking defects or losing the feel of handcrafted quality. Besides, even if Rolex tried to flood the market with more watches, supply might catch up, but demand could rise as fast or faster, because scarcity itself is part of what makes the brand desirable. The idea of waiting, of exclusivity, of owning something few people can get. That aura carries value. So even increasing production might not fix the empty shelf problem, as more watches in equals more buyers trying to get in line. Still, Rolex's official statement stands as a clear message. They claim they are not fueling hype by holding back production. They claim they are simply trying to build watches the right way, by hand, carefully, without cutting corners, because their loyal customers deserve excellence, not shortcuts. What looked like a carefully built marketing ploy might be nothing more than the honest limits of hand craftsmanship, high demand, and slow but careful manufacturing. Meanwhile, how exactly are these watches produced? How Rolex watches are made. When you think of a luxury watch, you might picture a shiny object ready to wear, produced somewhere far away in a big factory. But for Rolex, the truth lies deep in Switzerland, in several special sites where every part of a watch gets built, shaped, polished, assembled, and tested under careful eyes. Rolex does not outsource its work. The brand runs its own production from start to finish, making sure that every single component meets their strict standards. Every Rolex watch, including the movement, the case, the bracelet, the dial, and the bezel, is created entirely within Rolex's factories. Nothing comes from outside. The company uses a vertical production model, meaning that all key processes happen in-house, from casting gold alloys to machining steel, from finishing cases and bracelets to assembling movements. This approach gives Rolex complete control over quality, materials, and precision, ensuring that every watch leaving their facilities reflects the brand's legacy and dedication. Rolex distributes its work across several sites in Switzerland, each with a specific role. At the first site, raw metals such as steel, gold, and platinum are melted, cast, and shaped into the first forms of cases and bracelets. The foundry at this site allows Rolex to create its own alloys, including its famous 904L steel, known as oyster steel, and proprietary gold mixes, including yellow gold, white gold, and Everose rose gold. These metals are carefully melted, poured, and cooled before being machined into precise parts. Every link of a bracelet, every case body, and every lug is shaped, polished, or brushed with extreme attention to detail. The finishing work alone requires skilled hands and time, as each surface must meet the brand's high standards for smoothness, reflection, and durability. Meanwhile, at another site, Rolex focuses on the watch face and decorative elements. Dials are produced, hands are crafted, and markers are applied, all while maintaining precise measurements to ensure consistency across models. For watches that include precious stones, gem setting is done by hand, with each stone carefully aligned and secured under magnification. Bezels, especially those using high-tech ceramic materials, are shaped, polished, and engraved with precision, adding both functionality and aesthetics to the timepiece. This attention to exterior detail guarantees that each Rolex watch not only functions reliably, but also looks visually exceptional. At the heart of every Rolex, the movement is being built in another dedicated facility. Skilled watchmakers assemble hundreds of tiny components, including gears, springs, and wheels, with extreme care. Each movement must be perfectly balanced, lubricated, and tested to meet Rolex's strict standards. The assembly process relies heavily on human skill, as many tasks require delicate adjustments and careful placement that machines alone cannot perform. Once assembled, the movement undergoes rigorous testing for accuracy, power reserve, self-winding capability, and durability. Rolex applies its own strict standards, often exceeding the requirements of official certifications, to ensure that each movement can perform reliably under a variety of conditions. Once all components are ready, they are sent to a central facility where the watch is assembled and undergoes final quality control. Here, the movement is placed into the case, the dial and hands are fitted, and the bracelet or strap is attached. The completed watch is then subjected to a series of tests, including waterproofing, timing accuracy, self-winding performance, and general durability checks. Only after passing these rigorous inspections does a Rolex receive the company's internal certification, the Green Seal, confirming it as a superlative chronometer. Every single step, from metal casting to final assembly, is controlled internally, giving Rolex complete oversight of production quality and consistency across all watches. The extensive in-house process also explains why Rolex watches are relatively scarce. Because so much of the work is done by hand and each step takes time, the brand cannot produce watches at the same speed as mass-manufactured products. Even with thousands of employees and advanced machinery to assist with cutting and shaping, the human-driven aspects of assembly, finishing, and testing create natural limits on output. Steps like gem setting, movement assembly, and final inspection cannot be rushed without risking quality or reliability. As a result, even though demand for Rolex watches is high worldwide, production remains capped by the careful craftsmanship required at each stage. This method of production reinforces Rolex's commitment to excellence and its independence. By controlling every step, from raw materials to finished watch, Rolex maintains full control over quality, innovation, and design. The company can experiment with new alloys, refine existing materials, and develop new mechanisms without relying on external suppliers. This vertical integration ensures that each watch represents the brand's standards and heritage. Every Rolex, no matter where it ends up in the world, begins life in the same Swiss workshops, passing through the same careful hands and following the same exacting procedures. Ultimately, when someone holds a Rolex watch, they hold something that has traveled through a complex journey. The entire process involves skill, precision, and patience, requiring both human hands and specialized machines to bring the watch to life. The slow, deliberate, and highly controlled process explains why stores often appear empty and why waiting lists exist. The scarcity is not simply a marketing strategy, it reflects the very nature of how Rolex watches are built and why they continue to command such admiration and value worldwide. The shocking truth about the distribution of Rolex. With the current situation of empty shelves in various Rolex stores, consumers have watched for news from the company. And when the head of Rolex, Jean-Frédéric Dufour, finally spoke, many listened hard. He once gave a rare interview, and in that talk, he addressed how Rolex handles distribution, resale, and what happens when a watch leaves a shop. What he said helps explain the complicated path a Rolex takes, from factory to shop to wrist. Dufour began by warning people against treating watches like financial assets. He explained that it isn't ideal for people to compare watches with stocks. He thought that comparing a watch to a stock sent the wrong message and could be dangerous. To him, a watch is not a speculative tool. It is first and foremost a product made with care and thought. That view tells you something about how Rolex sees itself. The company does not want its watches to be seen as quick-turn investments. It wants them to be appreciated for their craftsmanship, reliability, and status, not just for resale value. If Rolex watches became only about flipping for money, that might compromise how people value what they wear. In the context of scarcity and demand, Dufour's stance was especially important. When many buyers rushed to get their hands on certain popular models during the pandemic and resale prices soared, Rolex felt the pressure. But rather than encourage that frenzy, Dufour emphasized caution. He signaled that Rolex did not want to feed speculation. Instead, the company wanted to remain grounded in its principles, which focus on quality products, not investment hype. Beyond that, Rolex has tried to manage how its watches move after they leave the main shelves. In late 2022, the brand launched a renewed Rolex Certified Pre-Owned Program, CPO. Under this program, previously owned Rolex watches, provided they meet certain conditions, can be sold through the official network of authorized retailers. These watches are inspected, verified for authenticity, fully serviced if needed, and recertified by Rolex. Through this CPO program, Rolex aims to bring order and transparency to the secondary watch market. Rather than leaving buyers to gamble on uncertain origin or quality when buying a second-hand Rolex, the program ensures that the watch you get has been checked thoroughly and meets Rolex's high standards. It also gives the watch a new guarantee. When buyers get a certified pre-owned Rolex, they receive an official warranty and confirmation of authenticity. This move by Rolex shows that they take seriously the long-term life of each watch. Dufour and the company seem to understand that many people buying a Rolex may someday want to sell or trade it or pass it down. By offering a controlled, official, pre-owned route, Rolex can help maintain its reputation, avoid the chaos and markup of gray market resales, and protect buyers from fakes or misrepresented watches. In that interview and in recent public statements, Dufour also addressed Rolex's distribution strategy. He clarified that the brand plans to keep working mainly through its network of authorized dealers. Even though Rolex acquired one major retailer, Bucherer, recently, the company says it does not intend to massively expand its own retail stores. Instead, the authorized dealer network remains the backbone of Rolex's global distribution. What this means is that after a watch leaves a Rolex factory and gets shipped out to a retailer, Rolex's direct control over who gets the watch weakens. The authorized retailers, each with their own stock, their own rules, their own wait lists, decide which customers get which watches and when. This system adds another layer of randomness. Two customers could walk into different authorized shops on the same day and see totally different availability. For some, shelves may seem empty. For others, a watch may be ready. According to Rolex, this decentralized distribution is a key part of making sure supply meets demand carefully without compromising standards. Dufour believes that this dealer-based network helps preserve the brand's integrity. He explained that keeping sales through authorized dealers, rather than flooding markets with direct-to-consumer sales, helps maintain exclusivity and ensures each buyer receives service and support from trained experts. Moreover, the CPO program plays into this philosophy. By channeling pre-owned sales through official dealers, Rolex stays connected to even second-hand buyers. Rather than letting gray markets or unregulated resellers dominate, Rolex wants to oversee the entire life cycle of the watch. That way, if a watch passes from one owner to another, the brand still guarantees its authenticity and condition. It helps reassure buyers and preserves long-term trust in Rolex. At the same time, Dufour has cautioned against unrealistic expectations. He said demand may slow and warned that watches are not investment instruments like stocks, especially after the surge in demand and rapid price increases during pandemic-era hype. He expects the coming years to be a challenging year for the luxury watch industry. His view suggests Rolex is re-anchoring itself, less about speculative resale gains, more about enduring quality, long relationships with customers, and preserving the heritage of the brand. He seems to believe Rolex should build watches that last decades, not just chase temporary market hype. What the CEO of Rolex actually said paints a clearer picture behind the rumors, speculation, and resale craze. Rolex sees itself not as a ticket to fast riches, but as a craftsman brand. It seeks to control where and how its watches are sold, both new and pre-owned. It wants buyers to get an authentic, well-made watch, and to trust the process for its lifetime. The distribution is managed by authorized dealers, the pre-owned market is being formalized via certification, and demand is acknowledged, but not exploited for hype. For someone watching from outside, someone chasing a coveted Rolex, knowing this can help, it may explain why the watches that are in demand seem out of reach. It shows that Rolex's scarcity, especially for hot models, comes from a desire to protect brand value long-term. However, the company has had its own fair share of challenges. The slow slide, sales, challenges, and losing customers. Rolex once looked almost untouchable. People saw it as the king of luxury watches, but recent data shows cracks in that shine. Changes in market, consumer tastes, and value of watches have created real challenges for Rolex. In 2024, the global luxury watch market shrank. The top 50 Swiss watch brands sold fewer watches overall. Sales by those brands dropped from about 16 million units to just over 13 million units. Yet despite that downturn, Rolex still posted growth. Its turnover rose by about 5%, reaching roughly 10.6 billion Swiss franc. On face value, that seems like a win. Rolex remained top dog among major watchmakers. But this growth hides deeper trouble beneath the surface. Reports show people are speculating less about Rolex watches than before. The demand driven by resellers or investors cooled off. For example, wait times for popular models shrank. One iconic model's waiting time dropped from 105 days in 2023 to 68 days in 2024. Another popular model saw waiting time halved from 180 days in 2022 to 90 days. That suggests fewer people are lining up to buy new Rolex watches, perhaps because they know resale value has weakened or because they doubt exclusivity anymore. Indeed, resale value for Rolex watches has weakened. The secondary market, where pre-owned or resale Rolex watches are sold, shows a drop in value. Average resale premiums over retail have shrunk. Once very high, now they are lower. Moreover, data from 2025 reveals that average prices for pre-owned Rolex watches dropped about 4.2% over the past year. In earlier years, some models, especially rare ones, commanded big premiums above retail, sometimes thousands of dollars above retail price. That premium helped drive demand. But now, with prices softening, many buyers feel the value they once believed in is not so certain. As a result, some of the older demand that came from speculators or flippers has dried up. These are buyers who are treating Rolex not simply as a watch, but as an investment or a way to make profit. Without profit margin, many of them walked away. At the same time, broader shifts are affecting Rolex's traditional appeal. People's tastes are changing. More and more younger or tech-oriented consumers look for smartwatches or multifunctional devices rather than mechanical luxury watches. Also, economic uncertainty and cost pressures globally make expensive luxury items harder to justify for many. High prices and the sense of exclusivity, once major draws, can now turn into barriers for potential buyers. Rolex's traditional strategy also works as a double-edged sword. It keeps product range narrow, focusing on high-end mechanical watches. That preserves their heritage. But it limits appeal to a broader demographic who might want something more modern, cheaper, or with features like smartwatches. Their marketing and distribution method tends to rely on old-fashioned ways: authorized dealers, selective retail, limited supply. In a world shifting towards online shopping and more casual consumption, this can make them seem less accessible. Another big issue is the gray market and resale market dynamics. Rolex has long had to deal with unauthorized resellers and counterfeit watches. This complicates how the brand is perceived and can lower trust among potential buyers who worry whether a watch is genuine or overpriced. When resale values dip and counterfeits circulate, some buyers step back, especially those who once saw Rolex as a stable store of value. Beyond resale changes and competition from smartwatches, there is a bigger cultural shift. Younger generations may not see a luxury watch as a status symbol anymore. They may value utility, modesty, or technology over visible luxury. This change in values can push potential buyers away from Rolex, especially people who earlier might have aspired to own a Rolex to show success or status. All these internal and external pressures mean Rolex is in a delicate position. On the surface, its 2024 revenue rose, but the drop in resale value, softer demand, shifting consumer tastes, and competition from newer kinds of watches show a brand under strain. If Rolex wants to hold on to its legacy and stay relevant, it might need to reconsider some things. Maybe widen product range, maybe adapt to changing buying habits, maybe lower dependence on exclusivity as the main selling point. Otherwise, it may keep losing customers over time, especially among younger and less wealthy groups. In that sense, the glow of Rolex's dominance may have started to fade. Once fervent demand, driven by investment and resale, may no longer support the brand the same way. Traditional fans may stay, but the new generation may drift away. So Rolex faces a real challenge of staying true to its heritage while adapting to a changing world. The numbers show that luxury watch demand is changing. And if Rolex does not evolve, it risks losing more than just resale premiums. It may lose relevance. Do you believe the scarcity of Rolex is due to the limitations encountered during the manufacturing process? Or is it just a strategy to increase demands? If this breakdown changed how you think about luxury, let us know in the comments. Hit that like button. Subscribe so you never miss our next deep dive into the hidden dynamics of wealth, status, and the brands desperately trying to capture both. Because in luxury, nothing is permanent.